Once upon a time, hundreds of years ago, a teenage girl was wandering the Yorkshire Dales. As she traversed the mist-laden hills, purple heather swaying in the breeze, the twilight of midsummer casting a gentle glow over the horizon, she saw a figure lingering on the path ahead. A boy her age. He was unspeakably beautiful. Silky hair the color of midnight, eyes that glimmered like a morning star. 9 months later, the 15-year-old Agatha gave birth in a cave hidden in the moors. And for the first 2 years of her child's life, they lived in the forest of Knaresborough. The nearby townspeople tried to coax the name of the child's father from Agatha's lips, but every time she refused. Finally, as her desperate situation became known, the abbot of Beverley intervened. He offered to place Agatha in the convent of St. Bridget in Nottinghamshire, on the condition that the child, a girl named Ursula, lived with a foster family in Knaresborough. Ursula grew up in town, and as an adult, she married a carpenter named Toby Shipton. But Ursula never quite fit in. She made bold predictions about the future, and she gained a reputation for being something of a prophetess. Rumors swirled about Ursula Shipton, that her powers came from her mysterious father, who just might have been the devil himself. Today on the show, we are exploring the story of Mother Shipton, the Yorkshire prophetess. Was she a real person? Which of her prophecies came true? And how did she inspire panic about the apocalypse centuries after her death? I'm Nicole Miras, and this is Fireside Fables. Welcome back to the show where we explore everything related to folklore, weird history, and things that go bump in the night. Fireside is still a relatively new show here on YouTube, so subscribing, liking, sharing it with a friend, all of that still makes a huge difference. In honor of Mother Shipton, I am having a very strong English breakfast tea today. I am stoked, positively stoked to tell this story. Mother Shipton remains this fabulously enigmatic character in English folklore. Compared to court magicians and soothsayers like John Dee or Nostradamus, Mother Shipton was a working class figure whose alleged prophecies inspired the imaginations of ordinary people. And I say alleged because we don't really know for sure if she was a real person. The earliest reference to her existence arrives in 1641 in a pamphlet called The Prophecy of Mother Shipton in the Reign of King Henry VIII. Allegedly, Ursula Shipton was born around 1486 to 1488 to a teenage girl named Agatha Soothtail, or Soothtail, a little on the nose, and she died in 1561. So this would have put Ursula between the ages of 72 and 75 around the time of her death. The pamphlet in question tells the story of Mother Shipton's prophecy for Cardinal Wolsey, a Catholic cardinal and statesman who served as Archbishop of York during the reign of Henry VIII. Henry famously wanted his marriage to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, to be annulled. But the Pope refused to grant the annulment, and Cardinal Wolsey failed to persuade him. The once powerful Wolsey was stripped of his government positions, and with nothing keeping him in London, he left for the city of York, which, funny enough, he had never actually been to before. The pamphlet tells us that Mother Shipton delivered a prophecy that Wolsey would never make it to York. The writer claims she said that Cardinal Wolsey should never come to York with the king, and the cardinal, hearing, being angry, sent the Duke of Suffolk, the Lord Percy, and the Lord Darcy to her. But the men were impressed with Mother Shipton's occult knowledge, and sure enough, her prophecy came true. As Wolsey was making the journey to York in 1529, he had stopped in a village in North Yorkshire before being called back to London. Ominously, he learned that he had been accused of treason. His health failed rapidly, and he died of dysentery a few weeks later. The pamphlet also includes predictions that would come true during the 17th century, specifically regarding the English Civil War. Wars shall begin in the spring, much war to England it shall bring. Then shall the ladies cry well away that ever we lived to see this day. Interestingly, whoever wrote this prophecy, whether it was Mother Shipton or someone else, seemed to have Republican sympathies. There shall never be warfare again, nor any more kings or queens. This one, of course, didn't come true. What's interesting is that this pamphlet doesn't include much background information about Mother Shipton, suggesting that she may have already been a well-known figure. Okay, so this first clear record was published about 80 years after her alleged death. But is there any evidence from her lifetime? The only potential detail comes from Henry VIII himself. In 1537, the Catholics in Yorkshire rebelled against the establishment of the Church of England, and Henry possibly wrote a letter to the Duke of Norfolk regarding people who were stirring up rebellious sentiment. I say possibly because the full original text of the letter doesn't survive, but quotations from secondary sources note that the king mentioned the Witch of York. We are deep in the weeds of folklore here, but all I can say is that her existence has never been solidly proven. Some scholars believe that it's possible she was based on a real person, with some elements of her story exaggerated later on. Whoever she was, Mother Shipton proved to be an enduring character whose prophecies were used in later centuries as political propaganda. For example, in 1667, the Irish novelist Richard Hurd wrote a biography of Mother Shipton. And it's this text that includes the more dramatic details of her being the daughter of Satan, of being born in a cave. His book also portrays her more deliberately as a witch, with the stereotypical look of a hag with a hooked nose performing magical acts. As we've talked about before, it's important to keep in mind that witch trials were actually not common until the early modern period, specifically during the mid-1500s. Magic for medieval people was a more nuanced subject. But even still, Shipton wasn't usually described as a witch, but rather as a soothsayer or a prophetess, meaning that she was believed to have an uncanny ability to predict the future, but wasn't known for casting spells or influencing those events through occult practice. But Hurd's biography, The Life and Death of Mother Shipton, does include anecdotes of her performing spells. It is also a much more political text, a trend that we'll see more of in the future, in which Mother Shipton's alleged prophecies would claim foreknowledge of events that would transpire in the coming decades, events that had already happened by the time those pamphlets were published. For example, Richard Hurd was writing during the Restoration, about 18 years after Charles I was killed. The prophecies that he cites are of a more royalist nature. He claims that Mother Shipton knew about Charles's death. Then shall the council great assemble, who shall make great and small to tremble. The white king then, O grief to see, by wicked hands shall murdered be. He adds that she foresaw the restoration of the monarchy after the English Civil War. For fate to England shall restore, a king to reign as heretofore. Prophecies provided ample opportunities for political activists. They could make up a prophecy, attribute it to Mother Shipton, and craft the words to suit their desired outcome. After 1695, the UK's Parliament allowed older licensing laws to lapse. These laws were previously used in order to regulate the press. This allowed for much greater journalistic freedom and consequently printing of more politically charged pamphlets. An especially odd Shipton prediction was included in an 1862 edition of her prophecies edited by Charles Hindley, and this one caused great panic. The world to an end shall come in 1881. We know that the Earth did indeed keep spinning after 1881, but the prediction did result in such apocalyptic panic that the British Library felt compelled to investigate Mother Shipton's prophecies. The editor of the scholarly journal Notes and Queries later stated, Mr. Charles Hindley of Brighton, in a letter to us, has made a clean breast of having fabricated the prophecy quoted. It's easy, of course, to backdate something that has already happened, such as Richard Hurd's text, which was published after the English Civil War. What's really spooky, though, are the ones that are spot on, like this prophecy, included in Hindley's 1862 book. Through hills man shall ride, and no horse be at his side. Under water men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall talk. In the air men shall be seen, in white, in black, in green. Automobiles, submarines, airplanes, whatever the truth is of Mother Shipton, whether she was a real person or not, whether she wrote all the prophecies or not, there's nothing quite so unsettling as the ones that do come true. Mother Shipton was a grassroots prophet. Unlike the great mythical wizards like Merlin or court magicians like John Dee, Mother Shipton was female, working class, and decidedly of the people. By emerging onto the scene during the early modern period, just as literacy was beginning to expand, she became one of the earliest mass media characters. It's not an accident that her profile as a folkloric hero grew during periods of instability in England. Plagues, war, regicide, nothing was beyond her grasp. And in a time in which freedom of speech was still heavily curtailed, she gave the people a voice to speak through her, whatever the truth of her story may be. Thank you so much for watching. If you're passionate about folklore or you'd like to learn more about strange stories from history, please make sure that you're subscribed and let me know in the comments if you have an idea for a future episode. Be well, and I'll see you next time.